Hello and welcome to another review. This is Firefighting Simulator The Squad. It came out on November 17th in 2020, and this is essentially just going through the gameplay, all the elements for it, what you do, how it works, and essentially if this is going to be a game for you. Now in this game, you're a player that takes on the role of a US firefighter in order to join up with friends in multiplayer or AI controlled team members to tackle gripping fire missions and face numerous varied challenges to save lives. So in this, during the operations, it's all about team play, and since it's the only way to master the numerous dangers in firefighter, then the idea is to get people doing the different roles and everything like that within the game. Now it's an open kind of semi-sandbox game. It's based on a squad truck within a specific fire department within a US district, and you've got to deal with things like flash fires, backdrafts, grease fires, flashovers, and essentially a number of causes of fire such as electronics, chemicals, explosions and things like that. So it's a semi kind of sandbox game. I'll get into that more after the intro. And the idea is you each take on a role to try and tackle each scenario as effectively as possible. So let's get to the intro and then start doing this review. Okay, just quickly let's go through the specs. So the system requirements for this particular game, it's a Windows 10 64-bit operating system, an i5 4440 or an AMD FX 8150. Now you need 8GB of memory. You want a GTX 750 Ti or an RX 460 or higher with 2GB of VRAM. Now it's DirectX version 11. You will need broadband connection if you're looking at playing on multiplayer. And it's about 25 gig in space, so it's not a massively demanding title by any means. Now when it comes down to the optimization of the game, this still needs a bit of work personally, because on the driving in particular, I have noticed a lot of sudden frame drops or spikes when it comes to the actual driving side of it, especially if you're in the kind of dashboard view and looking around and things like that while you're driving. It seems to suddenly stutter, even with my machine, which is way above the minimum specs, and I've even had to lower some of the specs down for driving. I haven't for this particular video, so any of the stutters you see are basically caused in the game. So this is something that needs to be improved. So how exactly do you play the game? Well, first off you get a tutorial mission. Once you've done that, you then get this map which has a load of padlocks and then certain flames and other little kind of missions that you can do. Now this is where I say it's only semi sandbox, because one thing I would have really liked to have seen is you basically being in the fire station and then you get a call out, you jump into your gear, get into the fire truck and then start making your way to the actual scene. But unfortunately you don't do that. What you do is you go to this map, you choose the mission, and then you get this little screen up which basically is your squad. If you're doing multiplayer or not, you choose your truck and then you press start, and then what happens is it then clicks you straight into the fire truck as you're ready to pull out from the yard to go to the actual fire itself. Now I feel they've missed a trick here, because they don't need to make it completely kind of GTA sandbox, but they could have at least made it so you kind of walk around the station a little bit, you get a call and it's randomized. I mean, I used to play a game called Emergency where it was a top-down view and it was more strategy based, but the concept would have worked well. What you could do is essentially go into a game which you had no particular missions laid out for you, and then all of a sudden calls would be thrown at you, whether it be rescue a person in a trapped car or a fire at a building. Okay, that game also had police, ambulance services and everything like that as well, so you could strip that part away from it as such, but the actual concept was you get thrown it and then you start getting rewards for every mission you do, so you could then start updating your vehicles, getting new crew, doing training and stuff like that. And I feel they could have done something a little bit similar, in the sense that you're sitting in your fire station and then all of a sudden you get a call out. You got to then get into your gear, get into the truck and then make your way to the actual scene. But unfortunately in this particular one it is all just mission based. They give you a mission, you drive there. Now this is why I class it as semi-sandbox, because you can take any route you want to get there, although it will give you GPS coordinates, but you can essentially miss that and take a different route if you want to. and you can complete the mission how you see fit. So you can do it in any order you want to do. The actual missions themselves get unlocked as you start gaining XP, so you can't do any mission, but you can complete the mission how you see fit. And again, you can then redo them as you unlock new trucks and things like that. And you can assign different roles, which means then at least you can do different parts within the truck and within the actual call out. This itself can lend itself to a bit of replayability, but unfortunately all of the calls play out exactly the same. So no matter how many times you do one call, essentially it will work exactly the same way, even the scripted elements. Now, one thing that would have been nice to see is when the fire engulfed a building, if you sat back and just watched it, then the building would get more and more kind of overcome by the fire. Maybe even it starts spreading to other things outside of the building. Like, for instance, a mission with a tree which is on fire. If you left that tree would only be the one that set on fire. None of the others would. Now, it would have been nice to see it maybe jump or the building start losing integrity, because let's face it, if a fire's left raging on its own, the building will start to crumble, it will affect the integrity, get in the walls, and eventually the building will start coming down around it and become unstable. Now, there are certain few missions where it is scripted and you do get buildings kind of collapsing in places, but they are all scripted, and unfortunately it means every time you do it, the mission, that same bit will happen at the same time when you get close to it, so it's kind of got trigger points. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the game's bad. It is a fun game to play. I am enjoying playing it. It sounds great, and the fires look fantastic. There is a few little things I've seen where if you switch between certain areas, the fire suddenly disappears and then comes back in, so it's not like it's a consistent kind of stream. It seems to dissipate when you're not there, and then as you get close to it, the fire will suddenly reappear, especially when you're walking into a room. You could look either side of the door, there's no fire, but then as soon as you get to the door, a fire suddenly appears by the door. You move out of the room and then the fire disappears again. That's something which I feel they can possibly fix in a later patch, and hopefully they do, because it would be good for the fires to be shown all the time and not suddenly disappear. It might be something to do with trying to save on memory and things like that, but I do feel it's something which would increase the immersion. But the fires themselves, they look absolutely fantastic. Now, in the place where the fire is based, it will, if you leave it, it will start to rage in that particular area. So you could clear out a room, leave that room for 10-15 minutes and not do anything with the fire, and then it will soon re-engulf the room. So that is quite good. You do get injured as well if you get caught in the fire, so that's something which is also quite good. Although if you do essentially lose your life, you just respawn back outside, so there's no real repercussions to doing a mission badly. You can get told off if you don't save any of the civilians quick enough, and you do get points and more XP for the more efficient you are in the missions. Now, the only thing on that side of things is you don't really get the feeling of urgency that you would do in a real situation, because although if you don't save them quick enough, then they never really die. You just basically get told you're not doing it fast enough and there's people there. And the other thing is as well, you know exactly how many victims are in the building and exactly where they are, and you get this kind of X-ray diamond pointing exactly where they are. Now, part of the intensity of being a firefighter is you've got to search room by room to try and find victims and to try and bring them out safely. You don't really get that in this game because you already know how many there are and where they are, so you can just go straight to them, get them out. And in one mission, I managed to evacuate all the victims before the fire even made it up the stairs, whereas realistically, you would be searching from the bottom, work your way up, and you would then come across them. But it just wasn't the case. I knew where they were, so I ran up a ladder, got them, and then got out before the fire really ever took hold. So that's, again, a bit of a shame. Now, I know that seems like a lot of negatives on the game, but there are some real nice positives as well. Like I say, the sounds are good, the water effects are great. The actual fact you've got to link your truck up to a hydrant as well to keep a constant flow of water. And the fire truck itself has got so many compartments you can open up. It's got so much gear on there which you can all use, whether it be an axe, a crowbar, fire extinguishers, hoses, the saws, the couplings and everything like that. So they've gone into great detail, and there's so much you can do with that fire truck, and it is good to see all that elements, and you do get to use all of them as you make your way through the missions, which is great. I love that element of detail, and the fact that you have to crouch to get round so you can see through some of like the real big kind of thick smoked areas. And you also have to look at each door before you break into it or open the door. Make sure that it's not hot behind. Now there's little telltales to say if there's going to be kind of like a backdraft or something like that, and if there is, you've got to move out of the way, because that thing will shoot a flames down the hallway or whatever, wherever you are, and if you're caught in that, that will take you out. The sounds of the fire as well, I mean the crackling that it makes, the building creaking around you while it's burning, the water flow, and the kind of prompts you get from dispatch and stuff like that. I mean the sounds they've done, even the music, it's got a very nice kind of atmospheric sound to it, and so they've really done a good job on that side of things to give that kind of immersion from the audio side of things. So they've gone into so much detail in the way that the fire works and stuff like that, that it does make it even more of a shame that they have missed certain points. Now there's little symbols you can have on the screen as well, so when you're taking out a fire, you can see them shrinking, and it lets you know how far the fire's got until it's essentially been doused and put out. So the game has a nice flow to it for what it is, and it is a fun game to be had. You can have a good laugh with a few of your mates on there as well. Now, although it is a single player game as well, I would suggest not really playing it single player unless you want to do everything yourself, because the AI needs a lot of work. I've been there when there's been a fire, and all of the AI have just been sitting outside. None of them are rescuing any of the guys, none of them are trying to put the fire out. They're just sitting there and not doing anything. Unless you tell them specifically orders on what they've got to do, they won't do anything. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it means you can then give them orders on what you want them to do, but it would be nice for them to act a little bit more autonomously and then start doing some of the work themselves. Some of them will jump straight into a fire as well. They don't seem to ever get injured by the fires, which is probably a good job, because when it's AI, my AI crew seem to be very suicidal and seem to want to jump as far into the flames as they can. So it's probably a good job on that side of things, but it would be good if they kind of reacted a bit more on that side. So the AI needs a bit of work, but it doesn't take away too much from the experience of the actual game itself. As far as the graphics are concerned, I wouldn't necessarily say they're next gen and they're not going to set the world on fire in regards to the look, but they still do the job very adequately, and they still do look nice, and it is nice to kind of see the world have a bit of life to it and is a bit more open in regards to the way you can approach it. So they've modelled it nicely. They do say that it's a huge open world, but I'd say it's probably more on the medium side. It's nowhere near the scale of, say, GTA 5 for instance, which I would class as a huge open world, and there are certain other areas which are bigger as well. But unfortunately, because of the fact it's all mission based, you very rarely get to actually explore the world, which is a shame, because it does look like they've done a lot of work at trying to make it look varied and different as you're going around. So it would be nice to have the element of being able to just go and explore as well, and that would be something again that would come back if they did a proper sandbox mode as well, and I do hope they do bring that in. The other bit that's nice is as you're getting closer to the fire, you do start seeing the smoke pouring up from the building itself, so you know as you're getting closer to it. So they have done some nice little details and little elements to it. And like I say, the actual graphics, although they're not groundbreaking, they do the job more than adequately, and it still does look very pretty. It's just a shame you can't get around and actually explore the whole world and see what it entails. There could be parts of the world you never do see, so it would be nice if they do get that mode in. So overall, I mean, the game at the moment is £20.99 or $24.99, and in Europe it's €22.99. So it's not necessarily at the high end. Can I recommend the game itself? I'd say it's a good game. I am enjoying it. at £20 or £21, I feel that may be a bit steep in its current condition. If they start working on a few of the issues like the AI, some of the procedural things and the optimization, then I could probably say, yeah, it's definitely worth it. If you're really into the kind of the fireman kind of thing, if that's your kind of jam and you want to pretend to be a fireman and you want to go around putting out fires and you just fancy that kind of challenge, then yeah, by all means get it. There's fun to be had with it and stuff like that. But if you did want to kind of get into the life of the firefighter and the intensity that goes with it and the kind of will to want to try and save lives and things like that, it does kind of miss that intensity a little bit, unfortunately. But it is still a good game. There is still fun to be had. I just feel it could have been a bit more fleshed out for myself personally. I am still going to play it because there is fun to be had here. It is still a good game. It's just not what I'd class as a great game. There's a lot of room for improvement here, so hopefully we'll see them come back at it, because it was definitely one of the best firefighting games so far. So I hope they do come back at it again, and they do end up improving on what we had, and hopefully bring in a more sandbox option, even if it's on an update for this game or in the next game if they do decide to do a sequel, which I do hope they do, because it's got a lot of promise, this game. There's just a certain few elements that they do need to kind of iron out a bit more. So this has been my review of the Firefighting Simulator Squad. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please feel free to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Get the bell on for any new reviews and other kind of gaming videos, tech videos that I do. I also stream on Twitch most evenings from around 9:30, 10 o'clock, where we do sometimes a bit of Warzone, F1 and other games as well. So feel free to drop in and see that, and join the community, have a bit of a laugh while we're at it. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.